somebody asked me about the ground war here in Israel, so I thought I would do like a more in-depth piece on that. But I would like to preface it by saying that as we get further and further away from October 7th, uh, the political situation of the country is coming back into play yet again. And the lines are now blurring between the Bring Them Home campaign, which is, more than just a movement of people, but, it's an official organization, plus individuals who are adamant and working to bring back the hostages. But the line is blurring between that and the anti-Benjamin Netanyahu crowd. So the protests that have been taking place for the Bring Them Home, for Bring the Hostages Home, are now sort of blurring into anti-government protests. And that is sort of a continuation of where we left off on October 6th, where there were weekly protests against this government and against the proposed judicial reform, among other things that the government had wanted to bring forth. So anyway, so that is starting to creep back in. Like real life politics is starting to creep back in and push out the feeling of solidarity that came after or because of the war and because of the attacks by Hamas on Israel on October 7th. So I'm definitely going to be watching this and see where this goes from a political standpoint. But that being said, let's get into today's video. I was asked actually for an update on the ground war that's happening in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. And I had been collecting some notes and gathering some information on that. And then today, I just felt like I should be recording that today, because today was, for Israel, one of the most deadly days in the war. 9 soldiers were killed in different battles that happened yesterday. So I felt like, well, today is probably a very significant day to discuss the ground war. I mean, we're something like 90-something days since October 7th, and since Israeli troops entered the Gaza Strip. And I do find it amazing, and one of the points I had wanted to make was there are still rockets being fired from the Gaza Strip. Hamas somehow still has not just the supply of rockets, but also the capability to fire them, despite the fact that Israeli troops have been there and they have controlled certain parts of the Strip. I think they're well in control in the north, and now they're moving. They've been in the south, and they're trying to establish command there as they have in the north. And yet there are still very fierce street battles taking place. So you've got the Israeli Defense Force, the Army spokesperson gives an update every day. But also Hamas is sending out videos of its own battles, their videos of the battles on a daily basis. And I don't know if it's surprising to see. I mean, I guess it's surprising because you hear about the initial aerial campaign by the Israeli military that took out a good percentage of buildings, especially in Gaza City. But you see a lot of the devastation, and you know that people are displaced, and there's a lot of destruction, homelessness going on in Gaza right now. But in any case, somehow there are still very fierce street battles. Hamas still has weapons, though also Israel reports on a daily basis that it's finding weapons, tunnels. There's a network of tunnels that they don't even know if it goes all the way from north to south. I spoke with one soldier who said they would send like a robot in, and he never got to the end of the tunnel. So, they're still probably not fully aware of what is underground, but there are weapons underground. So the IDF will tell you, that they found, reading some of this, but they found weapons like in schools, in mosques. And they uncover like RPGs, grenades, loaded guns. They also, like that are hidden within civilian areas. So one of the things that the Israeli military says regarding the ground war is that Hamas has been hiding within civilian areas, and in the northern Gaza Strip, they've been focusing on 2 military arms of Hamas, which total 14,000 terrorists in the brigades, and so that it has been one part, and their objectives are to eliminate the commanders and to find and root out all of the weapons and to uncover the underground infrastructure. So this has been a part of what the Army has said is its mission. They say from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and then also the military commanders have said that their goals are to destroy Hamas and return the hostages. So regarding the hostages, there are still 136 hostages. There was a video that went around yesterday. I don't know when the video was taken, but 4 teenage girls, they're 18 and 19 years old, that are Israeli girls that were kidnapped, and it shows like the before and after pictures. So anyway, we still don't know about the Bibas babies, the younger of which just turned 1 this week. And we don't know of their fate. Hamas has said they were killed in an Israeli airstrike. So anyway, what I heard somewhere, looking for the exact notes, is that Israel said, yeah, we're in control of the north. We're looking now toward the south, and then a lot of people ask. A lot of people want to talk about whether or not the Gazans like Hamas, what they think of Hamas, and is Hamas good for them? And if you look at the fact that they were able to build such a complex underground tunnel system, while Gazans lived in abject poverty, then it would stand to reason that maybe they don't like Hamas. But what one reporter pointed out was that as time goes by, that to criticize Hamas is for a Palestinian would be further to legitimize Israel, and at a time like this, it could be very dangerous for them. So you probably won't hear a lot of criticism. You will hear criticism of Israel, and you will hear it also in the international arena. And I will get to that in another video, because this week there is a court case going down, an international court case at the International Court of Justice, where South Africa has filed a petition against Israel accusing Israel of genocide, wanting them to be charged with genocide, and calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities until the case can be fully heard. So that's another story on that arena. Now, despite this being one of the most deadliest days for Israel since October 7th, the Israeli army is actually switching. They said they're kind of like switching to a lower flame battle. By the way, if you're planning to come to Israel, as you can see, I'm just sitting here outside in Jerusalem, and people are running, and kind of like everything is normal going on for the most part. And a lot of places are open, and there is there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. The spokesperson said this war is going to go on for months, if not the entire year. So this is a kind of battle now that he said it's like a low flame battle, but it's going to be a long term. So whatever is going on right now is going to be probably more about maintenance rather than the dramatic and catastrophic explosions and aerial assaults. Here is the exact quote that Daniel Hagari, the IDF spokesperson, said to the New York Times, actually. Oh, no, sorry, this quote is from the defense minister, where he said that the IDF was shifting from the, quote, intense maneuvering phase of the war to different types of special operations. He said that also that's going to happen later, that it hadn't happened now, but there's a feeling that there is a shift. There were announcements that the number of reserve troops are going to be reduced, and they're going to release some of the reserves to go back to work, because many have left. I think it was something like 200,000 reservists that were called up, and so that means they're not working. Many of them left families, and that they're out there in Gaza. A lot of the shifts, or actually they're also in the north, by the way, I'll get to the north, but a lot of these shifts of reservists, they're called up for 3 weeks at a time. They're in Gaza for 3 weeks at a time, usually with complete radio silence. They have to leave their phones out, and they're in there fighting with their unit, and then they get released for a weekend or so, and then they go back in, and there's this constant rotation of troops there. Another, the General Chief of Staff of the military, Herzi Halevi, he said that the challenges of 2024 will lead us into a year of war in Gaza. Now, so we're, many people are saying it's going to be that long. Also, there's, just so you know, still stuff going on in the West Bank, and there were several terror attacks around Israel last week as well. So there's still, it's not completely calm, though things are mostly back to normal. There's still like boiling, the pots are boiling everywhere. There's still no resolution on, what's happening right now with the people of Gaza. There were in attacks yesterday. There were several journalists killed, and also with their family members. So that is a big deal. Of course, in the Arab media, they're showing now the tents that people are living in Gaza. They brought in proper tents, so you can see those in all of the pictures. But of course, there's still the issue of the hostages, and I think until my thinking is that Israel's not pulling out. They're not withdrawing troops until there is a little bit of resolution on the hostages. Now, Hamas said that since one of their military commanders, who was actually in Lebanon, was killed in a targeted strike last week, since then they have cut off all negotiations with Israel as far as release of hostages. But they still have their people with very little humanitarian aid, and until the fighting stops, there is no talk of rebuilding. So there's no talk of rebuilding Gaza at the moment. In fact, some humanitarian aid organizations say that there's nothing they can do. They're not being let in by Israel or the Egyptians, and they're just sitting there with aid that they can't get to Gaza. That's not to say that aid's not getting in. Aid is getting in, but maybe not all the aid that is being offered. So that's what's happening in Gaza, more or less, very brief summary. But the north, on the other hand, now, mind you, there are still, like I said, rockets flying from Gaza maybe once a day. There's a spate of rockets, either at the south. Yesterday was at the center. There were a lot. And the videos that Hamas published showing the launches of the rockets, it was like nonstop, one after the other. But so that happens like once or twice a day from the Gaza Strip. But the north, now that is where things have heated up. And even, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, around Christmas Day, something like that, Hezbollah actually targeted a church in the north of Israel. They targeted from southern Lebanon where they're based, but you can see like their video that they took of that they pointing this rocket launcher at the church and shot it. So a man was injured. There was a man there, a caretaker. I think it's in a town that's supposed to be abandoned, but he went in to take care of the church, and was injured, and some Israeli soldiers were also injured in the rescue efforts to get this guy out. So, there were dozens of launches yesterday and today. Dozens of it says when in Hebrew klei tais, I think that's like a drone or something that infiltrates into Israeli airspace, gets through. There was also there was a military base that was hit, and there were a few that went off without sirens. There were a few. So there's a lot of activity in the north right now, and the talk has constantly been that nobody wants escalation there, that Lebanon doesn't want it, Israel doesn't want it, but what does Hezbollah want and what are they going to do? And also, how much is Israel going to allow before they respond in full? Now, they've got tens of thousands of residents still evacuated from the north, not allowed to be in their homes. I think it's something like at least 10 kilometers from the border, maybe it's 20 kilometers, but they're in hotels around the country, so they're still not home. So, and of course, won't be going home until that is resolved. So the north is another thing we're looking at on a daily basis. So in addition to all the rockets that are coming in, there is substantially more increased fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, and two senior commanders of Hezbollah have been killed in the last 2 days. So that it's another thing that pours fuel on the fire of what's going to happen in the north. And like I said, it's touch and go every day, but it has increased substantially. Now, just one last bit, as far as the war in Gaza, that's in the south of Israel, there is a famous Israeli actor who, if you watch the series Fauda, he's one of the main actors of Fauda, and he actually he's doing his reserve duty in the Israeli army, and he was injured yesterday. In very serious condition. His name is Idan Amedi, and he was injured. It was reported yesterday that he was injured in serious condition. Today, there are reports that he has regained consciousness and his condition has improved. But that's it for today's alert. And even as I am about to sign off, I see another rocket alert coming in for the north, or a siren.